You know what I mean?
Oh, I bet.
Yeah. Because docs used to have to go home at night and, you know, do all their notes. Now they just talk right into it, right at the top.
Yeah, and they would talk in it, you know, in the day, talk, like you said, talking in all night. And then she'd have to start and stop. What the hell did he say?
Yeah.
Type something. Back in the day when it was typewriters too.
Yep. I remember the day when we got a word processor, how great that was. You'd like type like a sentence and then look at it and then hit print and it would print on the page, remember,
You know, I'm trying to think. I don't ever remember not having a computer though.
Really?
You know, when I started work at GNAC, you know, we had a computer and it was on a collection calling. I started, and it was a queue. And it was just, you know, I'd enter something in, hit enter, next one come up, dial, call, type it in. So right out of college, I was working with the computer.
Go ahead.
Remember the TRS-80 Radio Shack? You
TRS.
young guys, you don't remember. That was one of the first, I bought one for $500 back in the day.
Oh,
This is years
long
and years
ago.
and years ago. Didn't do nothing with it, I just bought it for
TRS-80.
the TRS-80.
Never heard of it.
Still got it.
We're just waiting for the court stenographer, trying to find where she's at, so we'll update everyone shortly. I remember sitting there typing papers when I went at the Barron, and I mean, I graduated in 2000. We had a computer at home, but my mom, she worked for this advertising agency, and they had this deal where it was like, oh, hey, we can get all these Apple computers, a Macintosh, which weren't IBM compatible, you know, but it's, you know, we're gonna do them for all the employees, and then you take out $50 a check or whatever. So, oh, great, so I had this computer. But it wasn't IBM compatible, you know what I mean? So you'd work with stuff at schools, the computer lab was open until midnight. I remember sitting there typing away, you know what I mean? And then you'd go to somebody's house who, you know, had one and work there till 2 o'clock in the morning.
So, she'll be here in a half hour.
6:30, yeah.
So everyone, our court reporter is running a little bit late. She'll be here in a half hour, so if everybody's okay with that, just sit tight for her to, is that okay with everyone?
I wish I got the extra.
Before we start, I'd like to make sure everyone is signed in for this meeting at the back entrance to the room. If you've not, please do so because it must be on record. I am Bob Tanner. The other board members are Scott Calhoun and John DePlacido. I'd like to introduce the following members. We have Matthew Puz, Zoning and Development Officer, Julie Maggio, Assistant Zoning and Development Officer, Jeremy Tillman, Board Solicitor, and Tamara Doxey, Court Reporter. After the presentation by the appellant, the board will hear from those in question of the appeal and those in favor and those opposed. Any documents or evidence that's presented must be kept for a period of 60 days for our records, and after all presentations are made, the board will recess. We will then reconvene and make our decisions. The board has up to 45 days to render a decision. They're usually made this evening. If you do not care to wait for the decision, you may call the zoning office tomorrow morning after 8:30 a.m. I'd now ask that everyone please stand and be sworn in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth? Please answer, I do. Thank you. Okay, first up, we are going to hear appeal number 23-7, Brian Cool, for property located at 2624 West 32nd Street, seeking a use variance to change a condition approved on a prior variance, that the beauty parlor is subject to the homeowner being the sole operator of the shop in the R1 single-family residential district. So I'll ask you to approach and state your name and address, but first, I'll go a little bit out of order because I know you have to leave, and apologies for starting late. If you could come up and just say name and address and just a brief position, I know you have to leave.
Thank you. Douglas Wolf, 3133 Zook Road. I'm at the property right across the street from Brian. I would have no opposition to if the variance gets approved, in light of the fact that it was a beauty shop from the original owner for probably 35 years, so there's going to be no change other than his daughter will be running the beauty shop. So no opposition to that. He's an awesome neighbor, takes supremely good care of the property, as myself. I also have a commercial property attached to my building, the Allstate agency there at 32nd and Zook. And that's all I have to say.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, thank you.
Okay. All right, Mr. Cool, please approach. And hopefully I'm saying that, is it cool?
Cool, yes.
Okay.
Thank you.
State your name and address, and then just tell us a little bit about the project.
My name is Brian Cool. Address is 2624 West 32nd Street, Erie, PA, on the corner of Zook and 32nd, right across from the bowling alley, the White House. The house was originally built with a beauty salon in the basement, so I have been at the residence for about 2 years, and I redid this salon to the original, what the original owner had there. And the original agreement with the city, or with Mill Creek Township, was that it's owner operated, so I'm 100% positive nobody wants to see me cut hair down there. It should be illegal. So, but I do have a daughter. She's a wonderful kid. She's actually just got from cheer tryouts. She's a cheer coach for 2 of our schools here in Mill Creek, youngest cheer coach. She graduated 2 years ago with top honors at the trade school with cosmetology. She actually saves up enough money to go to college, and she's almost done with, hopefully she'll be teaching cosmetology at one point too. So my thought was to have it changed in the wording where I could be the owner and she could be the operator, where she could actually utilize the salon how it was in the past. Just, you know, there should be no extra traffic or anything like that. It should be like, you know, by appointment. It's not enough room to have a bunch of people we would hire down there to do salon. It would be Gracie doing it down there. She's a resident at the house. She lives there too, so. Couple other points. You know, across from me, Mr. Wolf has a business. Across the other way on Zook and 32nd, there's a bowling alley. Corner is a church. Behind me, a gentleman just passed away, I believe, last month, and that's an Airbnb. And neighbors right next to me on the right are duplexes, so there's businesses all around us too. So I was just hoping a simple rewording would help us out, where she could, you know, continue what she's already doing really well at. So I appreciate your time.
Okay. John, do you have any questions?
Yeah, how long, you've owned it 2 years?
Yeah, 2 years.
Were they, since you've owned it, nobody's cut hair? Or?
No, we just redid the salon down there, and, you know, looking into it further, I wanted to make sure we followed the guidelines and such, to make sure that if she did cut hair down there, we came and saw you guys and met with you guys, so.
Are you, before you bought it, the person you bought it from, were they cutting hair, or?
Yeah, for the entire time the house, well, the person before me only had it for a short period of time, and they were gonna redo it, but it wasn't working out for them. They needed the house without stairs, because their father-in-law was falling. So I bought the house from him, but the person for the entire, since 1966, the woman that lived there cut hair her whole life at the place, so.
Okay. Will there be any hardship is there a hardship involved in this at all? If things weren't?
You know, there's no extra traffic that's going to happen, because it's really just if Gracie has one person come over. I did, upon redoing the house, we did make the driveway a double driveway. If there was any issues with parking, there's not, though. I can't see anything different happening. Is there a hardship the opposite way is what you're looking for? Or?
Yeah, any kind of a hardship involved?
Well, I guess what we're trying to, you know, if Gracie were to graduate from the school, which it looks like they might be interested in hiring her. She graduated last week. It would be nice for her to have an opportunity to take some of her friends and stuff like that down into her salon and on her own time outside of where she might be working, do hair. So it would be a hardship, you know, on her financially, and
Okay.
What was the intention when you bought the house for that?
yeah, you know, I saw it and it intrigued me, and I'm a single dad, so everything I've done is for my kids. Try to teach my kids to, you know, fend for themselves. She pays for everything. She comes up to me a year ago, pays for her brand new car and everything else. She saved over $20,000 in the bank, working and donating plasma, and, you know, my other boy's 16, he worked at Waldemar, and he saved up enough for a car last year. He gave me cash. So I just try to teach my kids to do the best for themselves. So when I saw the salon and Gracie was doing the, you know, hairstyling, I thought it was a nice opportunity for her. So it wasn't really, you know, looking at all the legal aspects, and I just thought it was owner-operated. I didn't really realize in the original thing it said sole owner-operated, so I was just trying to get that changed. I don't have any intentions of renting it out to anybody else or anything like that. It's just for my kid, so.
And you currently reside there?
Yes.
As well as your daughter?
Hey, and my son.
Okay.
Yep.
Matt, just to confirm, there was a prior variance issued to the prior owner to allow this arrangement where the homeowner could be the operator of the beauty salon, is that correct? Correct. And so what we're doing here is seeking to modify it from being the homeowner. So the variance is already of record, so we're just seeking
Right.
modification of that variance to allow someone other than the homeowner to operate it.
Yes, that is correct.
Okay.
Yep, that's it.
And to be clear, you're seeking it for only your daughter?
That's it. That's it, 100%.
And to the extent, you know, if the board goes back, deliberates, and renders a decision, there's a condition placed that it could be, limited, whether that's to the original homeowner or to, a daughter or a
Right.
family member, like, you would have no objection to something along those
No, not at all. I have no other agenda here, and that's it, so that's it. That would be beautiful, so.
Okay. Anything else? Okay, thank you.
All right, thank you.
Is there anyone else in the audience who'd like to speak on this? Okay, Township? Okay. Thank you. Okay, appeal number 23-08, Mill Creek Marketplace LLC for property located at 2067 Interchange Road, appealing the zoning officer's determination that a car wash accessory is not a permitted accessory use to a retail business establishment in the C2 Regional Commercial District.
One procedural matter, I'm conflicted out of this appeal. My law firm has historically represented Mill Creek Marketplace, so I will be abstaining from any of the deliberations, anything along those lines. Depending on how the board ends up deciding whether they decide tonight or they decide later, they have the ability to potentially decide this within 45 days of the hearing, and they can retain separate counsel if they so choose. If they do retain separate counsel, that attorney would likely draft the adjudication for this particular hearing. If not, and it's agreeable by the applicant, if you don't retain counsel, the board, separate counsel, then I would draft the adjudication based on the board's hearing, if that's acceptable to the applicant.
It is.
Okay.
Thank you. Good evening. Michael Agresti, 300 State Street, Suite 300, Erie, PA. I'm a member of the Marshoff Law Firm, and I'm here tonight on behalf of Mill Creek Marketplace. I know everybody here. It's good to see everybody again. You're all familiar, I'm sure, with the site. At one time or another, you've been to some store or restaurant up at the Mill Creek Marketplace. We're going to present some testimony today from Lee, I forgot your last name again. It's May. I want to call you Lee Hall for some reason, but Lee May is from Giant Eagle. He's going to talk about the WetGo. He's going to talk about how that WetGo is working in connection with the Giant Eagle, common ownership, common management, that sort of thing. Greg Baldwin from the development company that put this together, Mill Creek Marketplace, is one of the family, part of the family of the Baldwin properties. He's going to testify about the overall site and the fact that it's a shopping center and how that plays into the legal arguments that we're making. As we stated in the addendum that we attached to our appeal, we respectfully believe that the zoning office made some mistakes in this matter, some errors in how they interpreted the ordinance. In the first instance, we believe that the car wash accessory is a matter of right, that we don't need to get into some of the other questions that are in our other arguments, whether this is customary or incidental to the principal use. We are going to address those issues as an alternative, but we think the primary argument is that the township in the ordinance specifically listed car wash accessory in the accessory uses for this zoning, which is C2, by the way, I didn't mention that. And that really ends the inquiry under the case law that we provided in our addendum. Secondarily, though, if that were not accepted, we're also going to present some evidence of how these car washes are customary and incidental to both a grocery store, but also in the broader sense to a shopping center community. And in our addendum, we focused on the grocery store aspect because that is what the zoning office focused on. They looked at the connection between the WetGo and the Giant Eagle. We'd like to supplement that argument tonight, and I have a second addendum that is here, I'll pass around. The argument that's set forth in the second addendum is that if you look at this whole parcel, it's all one parcel. It meets the definition of a shopping center community. It has the requisite square footage, the requisite number of buildings, and the right types of uses to be a shopping center community. And in light of that, it's important, if you don't accept our first argument, it's important to understand that shopping centers around the country are bringing in small, single-bay car washes like the one that Mr. May is going to describe as a part of the overall shopping center and customary and incidental to the broader uses, the bigger uses, the box stores and the restaurants and the other uses that are within that shopping center. So in the second addendum, the point we make is that we think there was a narrow focus on just the Giant Eagle. The Giant Eagle is just one of the multiple buildings on this tax parcel. The tax parcel should be looked at as a whole, as a shopping center community. So with that, I'm going to have Mr. May come on up, and I just have sort of a question and answer. Keep him tight, so I know we're on a tight schedule, and I don't want to keep everybody here all night. So unlike sometimes where you wind up a witness and let him go. I'm just going to just sort of lead him through some questions. Where would you like him to position himself?
If you could seat here and grab the microphone.
Great. Mr. May, Tamara will need your full name and your business address, please.
It's Lee May, it's M-A-Y. Address is 101 Kappa Drive, that's with a K, Pittsburgh, PA, 15238.
Lee, you work for Giant Eagle, is that right?
That's correct. I am an employee of Giant Eagle Incorporated.
What is your role there? Do you have a title?
I'm Site Development Manager.
And in that, as a site development manager, is development of wet-goes part of your purview?
It is. That is correct.
And how many wet-goes are currently in operation in the Giant Eagle network?
Well, it keeps changing. I think we opened another one this week, so it's about 45.
And how many are currently in development?
I believe I'm working on, wow, quite a few, probably about 12 to 15, and my colleagues working on a similar number.
Up on the display here, and I've got some handouts, so in case it's a little hard to see that.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Page one of the handout is the blow-up on my right, and page two is the proposed single-bay wet-go car wash schematic. Lee, focusing on page two, focusing on page one, just for record purposes, we've got the words proposed wet-go. Is that the correct location of where this would be going in?
That's correct. The area roughly is the shaded area where it's labeled proposed wet-go.
And then the area that we see on page two is a blow-up of that trapezoid, if you will, that is across the street from the Verizon and Moe's, and right behind and adjacent to the Giant Eagle. Is that right?
That's correct. It's just, the bulb's just rotated a little bit, but it's very close orientation.
Now, describe, if you would, what this wet-go will consist of in terms of the number of... Yeah, I mean, if you want to point to it, if you want to, just keep your voice up for everybody's benefit.
Let me know if you can't hear me. So, it's an orange shading on this drawing. I'm not sure if it is on your smaller one. That is the building, the wet-go building. You enter the site, and then you have plenty of room for queues for people to line up to get in the car wash. And you'll notice where these two arrows are at the bottom, there's two lines. One is for the regular paying customer, and the second line is for subscriptions. And I want to talk a little bit about the subscriptions in a bit. But after you go through the pay point, you enter the building. It's a single tunnel, and it's conveyor, so the equipment controls the speed at which the car goes through the wash. So you go, it's basic the pre-wash, the wash, the rinse, and the dry cycle. The little appendages you see on the right, the smaller one, that's an office, and it also has a restroom. And then the other one to the left side of the building is all mechanical equipment. So a lot of water is reclaimed and recycled for the wash cycle, and all the detergents and everything there. And also along the building, we have the wider spaces. This is where we offer our free vacuums. So there is no point of sale there. It's basically anybody can just come in and vacuum their car, but it's generally intended for the car wash customers.
Okay. The schematic here, is that consistent with the other wet-goes that you've developed, the 30 or so, the 40 or so that are in operation?
Generally the same. Of course, with a bigger site, you may have more, a little bit different configuration, but that circulation and design is very similar.
The size of the building is indicated as plus or minus 3,500 square feet. Is the size pretty well standard at this point?
It is. It's just slightly over 3,500 square feet. We have done a few smaller ones where the site was tighter, but it's very similar.
You can grab a seat back in front of the microphone. I think I'm done with this. If this were allowed to go through, who would be the owner of the Wetco?
It would be owned by Giant Eagle Incorporated.
And how would, who would have overall management of it, of the site?
We do, of course, have different departments, but it would still be managed and operated by Giant Eagle Incorporated.
And one of the things that we mentioned in our addendum is the Advantage Perks program. I don't want to assume, and we have to build a record here, but what is the Advantage Perks system?
The Advantage part, so we offer a free Advantage card to customers, and with that card, they can earn points or perks with their purchases. And those purchases can be at the supermarket, Giant Eagle Supermarket, or the Wetco Car Wash, or a Gecko, which is our convenience store of various sizes and sells fuel. The big advantage is it's pretty seamless. I have an Advantage card. I just show the same card everywhere I go, and I earn those points, and I can spend at all the different, we'll call them brands of the business, and I can spend them at those same equally at the other locations. It's important. Think of it as much like a gift card. If you have a Giant Eagle gift card, you can use it to buy fuel, or you can buy a car wash, or you can go buy a birthday cake. You know, it's very universal throughout the entire company.
And there's no customers here, so we can talk about the business purpose of this. What is the business purpose? Why does Giant Eagle have an Advantage card? And you can speak frankly.
It's pretty obvious. The more services you offer, the more of a purpose that you create for a customer to choose you versus a competitor. The grocery business is very competitive, and the margins, it's no secret, the margins are pretty narrow, so you have to do a volume. So one of the big advantages that we see with having the Wetco Car Wash is, I'm going to get a car wash, and I need to pick up some basic staples at the supermarket. I'm going to choose Giant Eagle because that becomes my destination. And similarly, customers at Giant Eagle would also have the benefit of knowing if they have kind of one destination where they can do multiple services. Much like, as the business has grown, we started over 80 years ago, one simple supermarket, and our offerings have expanded over the years, much like all of our competitors, whether it's a pharmacy or the different types of businesses that kind of become integrated. We found that the car wash was a great opportunity to draw more customers to our store.
And the last thing I have for you, Lee, is just as an example for the board, is these. This was a promotion that was run back this past Christmas, and I just want you to describe what the board is looking at here. This was something that was running just back in November and December of last year, 22. So,
Excuse me, Mr. Agresti, could the zoning office have a copy of that for the record? Right, thank you.
do you want the other thing to?
We did receive that from, that's all right, thank you.
So, I mean, it's kind of self-explanatory, but just for the record, just briefly describe what we're looking at.
It's just one example of the cross-promotion of the business, promoting different areas or services. And you would find similar ones for other services we offer, but for this one, it was based on some purchases of gift cards, you would get more perks. But it's tied, this one in particular, to the Wetco Car Wash.
And to summarize, would it be fair for me to say that Giant Eagle's in the main business of selling groceries, that is their core business?
By far, that's the largest portion of our sales.
In terms of the sales, would the revenue generated by a Wetco, would it be fair to describe it as incidental?
It is, if you were to graph it, yes, it would be it's incidental.
Those are all the questions I have for you, Mr. May. Thank you.
Okay.
Can I ask a question? How long has Giant Eagle been up at the interchange office or area?
I'm sorry.
How long has that Giant Eagle been there? When did they build that?
I know we signed the lease in 2016. Do you know, Greg?
Okay,
I'm gonna
around 2016, why did they not build the Wet Go at that time?
At the time, I can't honestly say. I wasn't with the company at that time. What I have found at some other locations is the car wash that we've branded as our Wetco, excuse me, has kind of evolved. Initially, they were much smaller, and it was, they called it touch-free, where you just pulled in and parked, and the brush just came around and it washed it. And so it's evolved, and as we get into this type of wash, they've become so popular that now we're looking to add it at additional locations. But
Thank you.
But if I were to estimate, I'd say it was probably opened in 2018, maybe, if we, there was.
And just following up on that question, do you know whether or not the Wetco concept was really even in place back when they were developing this one?
Not in this format, it wasn't.
Will the Wetco be open 24 hours a day?
No. Most of our Wetcos open, most of them at either 7 or 8 a.m., and most of them will close at 8. I think there might be a few that stay up until 9 in the evening.
Independent of the store hours?
Yeah, they're different from the
Essentially,
store hour.
right.
And to follow up on that question, the store's open, the hours of the stores are longer than the car wash, I would guess, right?
Yes, yeah, in most cases, yes.
And to the extent, you may not know this, but to the extent there are specific requirements within Mill Creek for car wash operations, Giant Eagle would obviously follow those, right?
Yes, of course.
These are two separate entities, right? The Wetco has its own office staff and,
No.
I mean, they all work for, Giant Eagle, but
No.
do they report up to the grocery store? Or how does
Yeah,
that work?
it's the CEO of Giant Eagle Incorporated. We all report or fall under that executive officer. And while, as we're kind of we're in a growth period now where we want to grow. Some of us are more focused on the Geckos and Wetcos. However, it's been in the news lately. We've had some restructuring of some new key management folks, and we're very much getting more integrated with that process and change. So I can work on a supermarket, a Gecko, and a Wetco.
I think his question was more towards, once it's up and running, the management of this, is it integrated with the management of the Giant Eagle? Is that what you're?
Directly, or are they under the umbrella of Giant Eagle
They're under the,
separately?
yeah,
Would
they're
it be
under
like the produce department, the meat department, the Wet Go department?
more like that,
Okay.
yes. Where, because the manager of the store, we really want them to focus on running a great store. We do have, I'll call it our subject matter experts with the equipment and operating the car wash. But we all have Giant Eagle on our paycheck. Is that?
Yes.
Yeah.
Because I'm not clear. Does the management of the store have direct responsibility for the Wetco, or they just report up?
They
parallel?
report up. Yeah, they report up.
In terms of, and it might be helpful to, are these staffed by several people at a time, one person at a time? How many people?
Usually, we'll always have at least one person there, any hour it's open. There's some times, maybe in high-volume times, there could be 2, or shift changes, there could be some overlap. But
And do those folks, like in this example, would those folks report to the general manager of the store in terms of getting their schedules or that kind of thing? I think is that kind of where you're going with that question?
That's on the same.
If you know.
yeah, I'm not 100% certain, but almost certain that they kind of have a separate schedule posted and things.
Okay.
They may share break rooms and things, but...
Yeah, yeah. All right. Thank you.
I do have a question. Sorry. A little tight in here.
Didn't mean to have my back to you.
No, you're fine. I can hear you. Can you guys hear me all okay?
Yes.
I know I have a tendency to be quiet, but I'll try to be loud.
I'll share my mic.
Mr. May, my name's Lydia Caparosa, and I represent Mill Creek Township.
Okay.
And I have a couple of brief questions, some of them are follow-up for you. So, correct me if I'm wrong, the position is that this is an accessory use, a permitted accessory use to the grocery store that's located there. Is that the position of Giant Eagle?
Right.
Now, if for whatever reason the Giant Eagle closed, the actual shopping mall closed, what would happen to the car wash?
That would be a business decision. I don't know if we have a case where that has happened, for example, so I'm going to assume.
Could you speak up a little?
Yeah, I'm sorry. Yeah, I can't think of a case where we've had that happen, where we had a Wetco car wash at a supermarket and the supermarket closed. No, I can't think of a case where that has happened, so I'm actually not able to answer that.
Oh, thanks, Matt. So you're unsure whether if the shopping center closed, the grocery store closed, if the Wetco would continue to operate?
Yeah, I'm not certain.
Could it continue to operate independently of the grocery store if it closed?
It is on the same property, so we haven't gotten as far through the permit process to know if the utilities can simply be extended from the supermarket, like the water and things, or if we would have to get separate connections and meters.
Okay.
And for electric too.
Okay. You also testified that there are approximately 45 that are Wetcos that are currently open. Do you know how many are located with the grocery store? Like on the same parcel, tax parcel?
I didn't, in my investigation, I looked at where we had them adjacent,
Okay.
like in much, like this case. I didn't look to see if there was maybe a parcel line that separate them, but they're directly together. We have quite a few of those, yeah.
And would you be able to provide documentation as to where they're located and if they're on separate parcels or?
Yeah, I could do that.
With respect to the ones that are in development, in the pre-development stage, are any of those proposed to be on the same property as a Giant Eagle, to your knowledge?
There's one that I know of in the Columbus area. A lot of them, so like I said, we started many years ago, and nobody thought of a car wash, 20, 30, 80, even 50, 40 years ago. So a lot of times we have an existing supermarket. If there's room, and like this is a great case where there's space on the parcel where we could add a car wash, we would want to do that there. There are quite a few where there's no room on the shopping center or the parcel that the existing Giant Eagle is on, so we try to find the closest property possible. For example, I'm working on one in the Shannick Township north of Newcastle where the shopping center, there's just no room. But we were able to we're purchasing the property next door, so we'll have a Wetco next door, and it's being just as close to the Giant Eagle as this one.
In the development of these Wetcos, when you're placing them on an existing location with the grocery store, have any of those developments required you to obtain, like a conditional use for a car wash?
The requirements vary from location to location. The one example I just cited was a special exception for a car wash, just simply because of the zoning ordinance. So there are some that are conditional use.
Have any of them involved placing, or it being an accessory use?
Not the few that not the ones that I'm working on right now. I would have to do the research for the ones that were built prior to me joining the company.
So would it be fair to say that, to your knowledge, the ones you've worked on have either been, car washes have been permitted by right, conditional use, or special exception?
Yes.
And with respect to, I'm going to direct you to the drawing for this proposed car wash. Does the grocery store and the car wash share entrances?
From the public street,
Internally,
Oh,
internally.
yeah, the parking lots are not connected. There is a significant grade difference here. Otherwise, we probably would have liked to have done that.
And will there be anything sold at the car wash aside from car washes?
Of course, the transponder, which is a subscription, is a car wash. Maybe some small incidental items for a car wash, like an air freshener or something.
Okay.
But no, like, no coffee or those types of things.
And you indicated,
I'm sorry, speak up, because I'm having
Oh,
trouble
sure,
hearing you.
sorry.
No, just him, you're fine.
Oh,
You're
okay.
fine, just leave.
Oh, okay.
Usually it's me. And how many parking spaces will be there?
I have to count them. I know on this drawing, we show 11 vacuum spaces. So is that a parking space? I'm not sure if you would consider that one. And then, if I recall, I could count them real quick.
No, it's okay. Just didn't know if you knew off the top of your head.
Yeah, I did. It looks like there's probably about 15, no, 20, roughly.
Okay. And so based on this configuration of, the access, yes, they share the same access from public street, but internally, they have two separate access points. Would it be fair to say that they're operating as two separate operations and businesses?
You could say that. You don't have to go buy your car wash at the supermarket checkout, no. It's kind of can function independent.
Okay. Mr. Mayor, that's all I have for you right now.
Okay.
Yeah, one other question. We're talking about grocery stores, but these are adjacent to convenience stores too, right?
Yes, and in some cases, the convenience store and the car wash are next to the supermarket. It's, like I said, as the business has grown over the years, sometimes it's a matter of what's available real estate-wise as to where you can locate the different parts of the business.
Yeah, I can think of a couple right now.
Yeah.
But what on percentage basis, how many are adjacent to a Giant Eagle grocery store versus other? Roughly.
I would say probably at least a third, roughly, would be like very close to the Giant Eagle. A third of the car washes would be on the same property or adjacent to the Giant Eagle supermarket.
Grocery store, okay.
Yeah.
Third, rough.
Yeah, roughly.
A third of the existing Giant Eagle
No,
stores?
a third of the Wetco car washes are located adjacent. I'm glad you asked that for clarification.
So two-thirds would be convenience stores or other,
Yes,
Such
or
things.
or maybe on 2 blocks down the street, because that was the closest real estate that was available.
okay.
If I may, one follow-up question based on that question. In your answer, do you know how many approximately like standalone car washes you would have currently?
I think there's about 45.
No, I mean, like, it's car wash, no convenience store, no grocery store.
I apologize, I don't know each location
Sure.
of those. I would say it's probably at least 20. I know I'm working on, maybe I'm a little more familiar with the ones where I'm in the due
Sure.
diligence and permitting process. I have several of those that are independent. There's, in a smaller town, for example, we may have a supermarket, Giant Eagle supermarket, but the nearest and the Gecko is half a mile away, and the only property we could find to build a Wetco might be in between them, so it's, it's kind of on, it's independent.
Okay. So roughly 20.
Yes, we have quite a mix.
That's
Yeah,
all.
you done?
No, I'm good.
In follow-up to that question, Lee, is there a certain distance with which you want to stay within the grocery store footprint for those sites where you can't buy, where the site doesn't have enough room and there's not an adjacent parcel available for sale? Is there a certain word, when we spoke earlier, you used a word, and I can't remember what it was.
Yeah, so, again, I am not I work side by side with the real estate managers who are, seek these properties. And generally, we want to keep it in the same trade area. And trade areas vary based on a lot of things, population density, transportation network, and everything. It's more of a convenience travel distance, and we try to keep them in that trade area. Now, if you have a great site, you might stretch the rules a little bit to be able to do that.
Is the idea behind keeping it in the trade area to keep it working in conjunction with the core business of the grocery store?
Yeah, it's that energy and brand awareness, and really to build that loyalty, because if I'm going to earn points for buying fuel, but there's no gas nearby, that doesn't work. Or if, the same for a car wash. If I don't have that convenience close by, that's very important. So we want to create that brand loyalty and drive customers to our business.
Those are all my questions. You guys have any more?
I don't, do you? Everything?
Well, Greg's coming up.
No.
Just our second.
Okay.
I believe everybody here knows Greg Baldwin, small town, but for record purposes, Greg, introduce yourself again for the court reporter and your business address.
Good evening. Thank you for having us. Greg Baldwin, Baldwin Brothers, 2540 Village Common Drive, Erie, PA 16506.
And you're with, the mother company's called Baldwin Brothers Incorporated, right?
Correct. This is Mill Creek Marketplace LLC. We own and develop, manage the shopping center. It happens to be an affiliated entity with our company.
Okay, and just briefly, tell us about, again, understanding most of you know what's up there, but for the record, what is on site?
Sure.
Just give us a description of what's on this parcel.
Sure. So Mill Creek Marketplace is our name of the center. Was developed as a overall shopping center in phases. It's around 38 acres with 172,000 square feet of retail establishments, ranging, of course, from Sportsman's Warehouse to restaurants such as Buffalo Wild Wings, and then, of course, multi-tenant building with Moe's, Verizon, Spectrum. The hotel is not part of the shopping center, but obviously with Giant Eagle and hopefully one day with our proposed WECO.
And what, the land that we see proposed WECO, has it been made part of the lease, or is it proposed to be made part of the lease if this were to be allowed?
So Giant Eagle has leased, Giant Eagle directly leases the current store, the land only. They constructed their own building. They've also executed a lease with us to lease the additional land, which is that area of the proposed WECO. So Giant Eagle will have leased from us this entire area that on your plans is shown outlined in red.
In your role at Baldwin Brothers, Inc. and Mill Creek Marketplace, which is one of the companies that it manages, do you have national holdings? People may not know.
Sure.
You're beyond Erie. Tell
Sure.
the board.
So we are a professional real estate development firm. That's what we do. We're in over 34, 38 states. I actually haven't counted recently, but we're across the nation developing real estate. We have access to a very small world of national retailers, including Giant Eagles, Costco's, Sam's Club. We happen to own the Sam's Club on Upper Peach Street, for example. So we are exposed to nationwide trends as to what's happening in the nation, and particularly in the changing retail environment over the last probably 10 to 15 years. We're seeing more and more big boxes such as a Giant Eagle, Costco, Sam's Club, et cetera, expanding their offerings, whether it's As we know, banks or grocery stores for a long time have had banks in them. You know, they expanded, 25 years ago, adding banks inside. They started adding bakeries inside and expanding their offerings generally. And what we're seeing nationwide is a lot of these big box retailers are also expanding to add amenities that are more accessory and incidental in their parking lots outside of the main store, which provide real nice access to customers who may not want to go into the grocery store to bank or to hit a pharmacy, for example. So many of these big box retailers are doing just this. And as we know, the state of retail isn't fabulous. They're doing this for the sake of survival, right? It's the sake of driving more profits to the store so that the stores can survive long term. It's part of the overall operation. So much like Giant Eagle, we're seeing on a nationwide basis a trend where Costco's are adding gas stations and car washes. We're seeing Sam's Club adding gas stations and car washes. These additional uses, which are clearly incidental to a very large store, are being added throughout the nation.
And did your staff help you come up with some examples of what you were just describing in the grocery store setting, examples of accessory car washes?
Yes, so as a matter of fact, and we've provided some of this information to the zoning office. We have some new examples as well, but to the main point, which is discussing Wetco as an accessory use being incidental and a customary use to a Giant Eagle, there's 13 examples, I believe. I'd have to ask my assistant Zach, but 13 or 14 examples of Giant Eagles where the Giant Eagle store has Wetco on their site or directly adjacent to the site, and many with Get-Go's as well. It shows how these big box retailers, just like a Giant Eagle, need to have these incidental uses, or feel they need to have these incidental uses, to be able to maintain their profitability, because many of us have seen, dark Kmarts, for example, over history of a period of years, where they didn't evolve. And what's happening nationwide is these companies they're smart. They're led by very, very smart people. They're beginning to evolve. They're understanding people better and what the trends are. And they want to drive customers to their stores by virtue of adding these incidental amenities to their primary grocery store or other type businesses. That's what's happening on a national trend.
So the handout that we just gave out was specific to car washes that were adjacent to grocery stores. As you mentioned, a bunch of them were Giant Eagles. Costco's, in your experience, I could have asked Mr. Bay this, Costco's, they have a lot bigger offering, but they're also competitors of a Giant Eagle. Is that fair?
Absolutely. Any retailer who sells groceries is a competitor of the other retailer selling groceries. Undoubtedly, no question.
So the fact that I can buy a TV at Sam's Club and Costco, it still makes them a competitor because they've also got a huge produce section and
Correct.
dry goods and everything else that Giant Eagle has.
Correct.
Now, what about the shopping centers? Did you investigate to find out whether shopping centers, irrespective of whether there's a grocery store there, whether shopping centers like Mill Creek Marketplace have added car washes?
Sure, no question. So retail, again, in the world and shopping centers in the world are evolving and changing. And, long since is the time when we had a power strip center with 5 big box users. Those have had problems. We all know there's many stores closing. Unfortunately, the Bed Bath & Beyond, for example, just in our community has closed, amongst others, whether it was Office Depot, Office Max, all closing. So nationwide, as far as shopping centers in general go, shopping center owners need to continue to work diligently to create co-tenancy, create amenities that attract customers to the shopping center for the health and well-being of the shopping center generally. I don't know if anybody has been in Buffalo, not to put Buffalo down, it's a wonderful city, but Buffalo suffered some fairly significant blight because of big box retailers moving out of big centers, and the blight just continued and continued. Well, these big retailers who invest significant dollars, and Giant Eagle has invested significant dollars in Mill Creek Township. They want to stay in Mill Creek Township and serve the community. They have an investment here. They're no different than we are. They are one of our community members. And in order for them to make sure that they stay in the community and can stay open, they want to add these incidental type uses to their operations. Clearly, driving traffic to the grocery store, clearly for profit, even though, Lee may not say that or want to say that, but it also provides a benefit to the community in being able to provide discounts when you're shopping within a group of stores under an umbrella. If you're shopping at the Wetco, the Get-Go, the Giant Eagle, you get discounts. Many of us know that, and many of us shop at Giant Eagle. I do, I get it too. I get gas discounts as well. But generally, as far as shopping centers, we're beginning to see many, many car washes becoming incidental type amenities to these shopping centers.
I don't really have any other questions for you. If there's anything else you want to add in summary, and the board may have some questions for you.
I think I would like to just simply add that sorry, Bob, I apologize if
You're
you're
fine.
about to talk. We clearly acknowledge that a car wash, to Lydia's point of questioning, can operate as an independent entity. There's no question, right? That tunnel could operate as an independent entity. That really isn't the question, though, within the ordinance, and I'm sure Michael's probably going to speak to that, and the way the ordinance is written. That's really not the issue. The issue that we're here to actually show you, and I think we've shown it quite well, is that the Wetco, just like a Get-Go, is a key component to the overall Giant Eagle strategy and key to their business, but both what the Wetco and the Get-Go's are clearly incidental operations that feed to the grocery store concept and support the grocery store chain itself. Wanted to make that clear because clearly we all know that there are Get-Go's out there that are operating independent of the grocery stores, right? No question. We see them, we know where they are. But the purpose, even if they are operating off-site, is to support the overall entity, which really goes to the question of whether it's incidental to the overall grocery store concept. And we're now seeing that based upon all of the car washes that these grocery store concepts are adding around the nation, it's become customary. It may not be customary in Mill Creek Township, but it's customary on a nationwide basis. And a lot of things happen outside of Erie on a nationwide basis that eventually come to Erie, and I think that's where we are right now. Thank you.
Lydia, did you have any questions?
No, you're good.
Mr. Baldwin,
Yes, hi.
I'll be formal today with you.
Please.
So I've flipped through these very quickly. The car wash accessories, I know some of you did provide previously to the township.
Sure.
Do you know how many of, the car washes that are with grocery stores would car wash be permitted by right?
I don't, and frankly, it's an irrelevant question.
And same thing with why do you think it's irrelevant?
Why is it irrelevant? Because we're not talking about whether or not this car wash is a permitted use in this district. We already know that it is not, right? It's only a car wash accessory, which is an accessory by right for a permitted use, and the retail business establishment is the permitted use, which happens in this case, in the very narrow interpretation to be the grocery store. So in the point of these examples is not to look at the specifics of the ordinances and how they're written in all these communities. The purpose of these is to show that it's becoming customary that car washes are affiliated and incidental to grocery stores in one case. And in the other case, the purpose is to show that they're customary now on a nationwide basis and incidental within shopping centers themselves. That's really the point of this. It really has nothing to do with how those communities' ordinances were written, what the terminology is, how they're defined, et cetera, et cetera.
And I understand that.
Okay.
But in that particular, in many of these communities, we don't know if you could just put a car wash without having a grocery store.
Sure. And in our community, we can put car washes in MU2, C1, and C3. In C3. So there are other districts where, yeah, sure, you can put them in as permitted uses, no question. Here, it's not, it's an accessory use, which is interesting anyway, because in MU2, for example, you can put a car wash right up against a retail home or a residential home, where in C3, which is in a commercial district, you can't put a car wash. Very interesting issue that maybe the supervisors frankly should address in a zoning amendment, because really a car wash in this particular location creates no issues of public safety, health, any welfare, anything at all. There's no issue with having a car wash in a retail district like this. So to your point, right, we absolutely have no concept, did not go to the extent of investigating the specifics of each and every ordinance, how it was written, whether it was a permitted use, accessory use, or conditional use, because that's not the point of what we're providing. Our ordinance only requires us, and Michael, I'm sure, is going to go through it in a minute, to show that to be a car wash accessory, it has to be customary and incidental, right? Essentially subordinate on the same lot. In this case, the lot is really the entire shopping center, although the lot happens to be the Giant Eagle and Wetco parcel that they lease. Giant Eagle leases from us. So we've met all the criteria, frankly, for this to be considered a car wash accessory in our minds.
So turning to that point, you feel that you've met the definition of car wash accessory, correct?
Correct.
So your position would be that this is being used in conjunction with the grocery store?
Correct.
And obviously it's the township's position that it's not being used in conjunction with the grocery store, and essentially based on the drawing, it functions as a separate independent entity and operated by someone other than the grocery store,
Well,
at least from the testimony of
Yeah.
Mr. May.
I get it. And in the determination issued by the zoning office, the terminology conjunction was used in kind of an odd way. And it almost inferred a certain dependence, attachment to a principal use. And I don't have it sitting right in front of me, but I can go grab it if you'd like. But the reality is, in the terminology in conjunction, and I'm sure Attorney Agresti will speak to this, but the ordinances should be interpreted in a very broad way for the benefit of the landowner. But the very limited terminology of in conjunction with, and the definition used by the zoning office would infer that there were even steeper requirements associated with an accessory use, other than the fact that they just are operated together. It would almost be like having and there are many other accessory uses in the ordinance, which we pointed out in our first addendum, such as, I believe vehicle fueling stations can be an accessory use. Let's use that as an example. I think we cited that potentially in our first addendum. Clearly, that does not have to be attached to a principal use. Clearly. You wouldn't want a vehicle fueling station being attached to another use. It is unsafe. There are other cases where the township was clear about whether or not something had to specifically be attached to a principal use, i.e. garage, attached. I believe that. Private garage, attached is that permitted use, okay? So there's nothing in the ordinance that says that the use, the accessory use, has to be attached to the same building, that it has to be operated by, with the same water line, it has to be operated by the same exact manager in the same exact building, operated in ways that are so close that like the produce department in the grocery store. There's nothing that says it has to be like that. So the interpretation of the in conjunction with, okay, should be much more broad. And we've already shown through Mr. May's testimony that they clearly are in conjunction, working in conjunction with the car wash that they own and provide fuel perks and provide these programs for the purpose of bringing these customers into the grocery store to buy groceries, clearly.
I don't have any further questions.
I have no further questions for Mr. Baldwin. He
Thank you.
stole my thunder, he's an attorney
Sorry,
also,
thank
so he's
you.
making closing arguments over here, you know, I'm going to repeat some of what he said. We don't have any more evidence to present. Again, this isn't a courtroom, and I don't know exactly, I'm not here enough to know the rules, but whatever I've presented, I would like in the record, the examples that we provided, and the addendum that I added, the second addendum, the drawings that were provided, so, I'll give my closing argument now. Greg,
One question,
Yeah.
Lydia, did you have?
I do have Mr. Puz to testify as well.
Certainly, my
So
apologies. Do you want him just to, can I stay here?
you can stay wherever you like, Mike.
Okay, thank you.
I don't know if you had anything further before I went to
I don't.
Mr. Puz. And I don't know if the board has anything before I go to Mr. Puz.
I guess I'm just curious if, maybe out of line, it wouldn't be the first time, but they've clearly presented their position of whether or not it's an accessory. Are you about to present clearly what, what your position is
Well,
and
certainly,
as opposed to it and why?
Sure.
Okay.
I am, that is my intention. Some of it certainly is detailed in the determination letter that Mr. Puz previously issued that is part of the record. I know we did just receive this second addendum, which raises sort of a new angle with respect to shopping center. We would like an opportunity to respond to that. I don't have anything prepared to hand you in response to that, because again, this is the first take at the shopping center.
Is Mr. Puzz's opinion based on his opinion or a legal opinion?
Mr. Puz, it's based on Mr. Puz's
Professional
review and
opinion.
interpretation and professional opinion with respect to the zoning ordinance and its
Okay.
application.
Should we talk about this a little bit before
We can certainly,
the second amendment?
Yeah.
Addendum, sorry.
So the second addendum is, touches on the issue of looking at this parcel as a shopping center community, which is what it is. Shopping center community is one of the many principal uses that are defined in the ordinance. And we raised it now because we thought that there was too narrow of a focus on whether grocery stores and car washes are customarily incidental to one another. I should say car washes are customarily incidental to a grocery store. We think they are. We think that we've got enough evidence to show that. But like any good appellant, you want to present as many arguments as you can. And we think that there's a broader argument, which is that shopping centers around the country, whether they have a grocery store or not, are putting in car washes for the reasons that Mr. Baldwin testified, which is you have to evolve your shopping center or it's going to end up dark because people aren't going to go there. And so car washes provide an amenity, an additional reason for a customer to choose to go to the Best Buy and it's here because they can get their car washed after they buy their TV, as opposed to the, I'll use Circuit City even though they're out of business, but as opposed to the other electronics store down the road that doesn't have a car wash. So it's just it's an alternative position for you to view that you don't, because one of the things that's in this determination is that there's no other situations like this in Milford. We think that's too narrow too, because there's always has to be a first. If you don't allow a first, you'll never have change. So we do want to look at what's happening elsewhere, what's happening in Columbus, what's happening in Cleveland, other cities, what's happening. We're seeing grocery stores adding these, but we're also seeing shopping centers adding them. So it's really just a belt and suspenders, if you will. And that's the whole point. I just summarized what's in the second addendum.
Thank you.
Go ahead.
Any further questions, Mr. Calhoun? I will be brief in my recitation with Mr. Puz, in the interest of time. Mr. Puz, and I'm sorry, I'm going to put my back to you all over here. It's mostly to your back anyways. Mr. Puz, I think everyone is familiar with who you are at this point in time, but could you please indicate what your occupation is?
I am Mill Creek Township Zoning and Development Officer.
And how long have you been with the township in that capacity?
Almost 5.5 years.
And in your office, in your capacity as a zoning development officer, you review and evaluate requests for determination as to a use, correct?
That is correct.
And you did that in this particular situation with the Mill Creek Marketplace request?
Yes.
And you issued a determination with respect to their request as to whether or not a car wash, accessory is an accessory use to a retail business establishment.
Yes.
And what is, I believe it's already been stated, but is the zoning district C2?
Yes.
And what is the current use of the property?
Well, in this case, it would be a shopping center.
And is the shopping center comprised of retail business establishments?
Yes.
I am going to go give you a copy of this. Everyone, this is a copy of Mr. Puz's determination. It's already in the record. I'm not marking it as a separate exhibit. It's just more so for ease of use.
We have it in our
We have it.
package.
It's in the record.
Mr. Puz, is this your March 13th determination?
Yes.
And is that your signature on the last page? Or, excuse me, second to last page?
Yes.
And what was the reason for your determination that a car wash, accessory is not an accessory use to a retail business establishment?
I began looking into this, to do my determination by first going to the definition of retail business establishment.
And also in everyone's packet is a copy of all the definitions and that were provided by Mr. Puz from the zoning ordinance. Again, everybody need a copy. But before we get to that, Mr. Puz, under the municipality's planning code, in your role as the zoning officer, you're directed to administer the zoning ordinance in accordance with the literal terms, correct?
Yes.
And you do not have the power to permit any use or change of use that doesn't conform to the zoning ordinance, correct?
Correct.
Now, why did you begin with the definition of retail business establishment?
The initial request for the determination was if a car wash, accessory was a accessory use to a grocery store, which grocery store is not defined. It falls under the broader category of retail business establishment.
And if I could direct you to, it's page 28, but it's the second page in the packet you gave for retail business establishment. Could you summarize that generally for us without reading it verbatim to everybody?
Yes, the definition of retail business establishment basically says that any use or service that is not specifically defined can fall under the definition of retail business establishment,
Okay.
or permitted as a separate permitted use, special exception, conditional use.
And as you said, grocery store is not separately defined.
Correct, grocery store is not a defined term.
Now I'm going to direct you to the definition. It begins with the in uses such as.
Yes.
Could you please read that?
Yes. In uses such as bakeries, candy stores, grocery stores, and florists, accessory uses may include the baking or making products solely for the purpose of retail sale on that premises, so long as our activities are conducted indoors. Would you like me to finish it?
Sure.
And uses such as sale of auto parts, accessory uses may include the installing or assisting with installation of purchased items.
So in this particular situation, with the proposed car wash, would that fall within what retail establishments have identified as what accessory uses may be?
No, it would not.
And directing you to, what other definitions did you review?
And we have also reviewed the definitions of accessory uses, permitted uses.
What about car wash?
Oh, yes, I apologize, yes, car wash. I did review that as well.
And what about car wash accessory?
I reviewed that as well.
Now, turning to car wash accessory. Could you please read that definition?
Any building or premises or portion thereof used for washing automobiles and light car, I'm sorry, that's car wash. Is that what you wanted me to read?
Car wash accessory.
I apologize. After I read it, I realized what you had asked.
No, you're fine.
Car wash accessory, a single bay car wash used in conjunction with an accessory to the principal use and located in a non-residential zoning district.
Now, this definition, your analysis under the zoning ordinance as the zoning officer, what would you take it to be used in conjunction with, to mean?
I'm sorry?
What would you, it's a single bay car wash used in conjunction with the accessory to the principal use. How do you, as the zoning officer, interpret that?
That would be a car wash accessory to a vehicular use. Is that,
I don't think I've asked the question right for you.
yeah, I'm not,
Just move on from there.
okay, I apologize.
No, you're fine. In the C2 district, and I'm going to give you a copy of, again, it's the C2 district provision that were in the ordinance, or the record. Under section 14519C, what does that section provide for with respect to car washes? What section is that? 14519C.
14519C is the accessory uses permitted by right.
Okay, could you please read that section?
Accessory uses permitted by right, any use in or accompanying structures that are customarily subordinate and incidental to an approved permitted use, special exception, or conditional use are permitted by right, including but not limited to the following.
And is car wash accessory identified as one of the accessory uses?
Yes.
And in order to qualify for one of those accessory uses, do they need to meet the definition of that accessory use?
Yes.
And based on the information you've been provided previously, would the proposed car wash, accessory, would the proposed car wash meet the definition of car wash accessory?
No.
Why not?
It is an independent structure that functions independently from the grocery store. That is, the car wash does not depend on the grocery store to function, as the grocery store does not depend on the car wash to function.
And you at least received the updated packet of uses. Strike that. And with respect to car washes, are there separate regulations for car washes?
Yes.
Are there separate regulations for car wash, accessory?
No.
So section 145-47, which is car wash, would not apply to accessory car washes.
That is correct.
Sorry, I'm looking for all of my papers. Based on your review of all the information provided and your experience as a zoning officer, why do you feel that this is not a permitted accessory use?
By definition for retail business establishment, car washes are not permitted with retail business establishments.
And with respect, so, hold on a minute. I don't think I understood your response. Back up. That's based on the definition of car wash, correct? That it's not a retail business establishment?
Correct. The definition of retail business establishment states that any separately defined term that is a permitted use is not included with any retail business establishment. So a car wash cannot be part of a retail business establishment, it's a separate use.
Okay. And in this particular case, because they're asking for it to be an accessory use,
Correct.
why does that not qualify as an accessory use?
Again, by the definition of retail business establishment, I did have that up and I apologize. It does state, like I said earlier, in uses such as bakeries, candy stores, grocery stores, and florists, accessory uses may include the baking or making products solely for the purpose of retail sale. The car wash is not making any products for sale.
Now, there was some commentary that
Mr. Cullen?
I know where you're going with this, and I will wrap it right up. Mr. Pez, there was some, in the determination, you indicated that no existing use of an accessory car wash with a retail location in Mill Creek Township, correct?
Correct.
And, we've been provided multiple examples of where that is being used. Aside from the new examples that you've received tonight, we did previously receive from the Baldwin's examples, correct?
Correct.
And did you review any of those to determine if those uses for car wash were permitted by right?
I did, yes.
And meaning that those could be separately established car washes regardless of whether or not there was a shopping center
Correct.
or a retail business establishment?
Correct.
Mr. Pez, that's all the questions I have for you right now.
Okay.
I don't know if the board has any.
Go ahead, you had
Well,
one.
that was the question I was going to ask, is after you rendered your first decision on March 13th based on what you read and what you applied to that, have you heard anything here today in their discussions that would sway you differently?
No.
So I have one question for you, well, to start.
Okay.
It says a car wash is not a use customary, subordinate, and incidental to a grocery store. But then it further goes on to say there are no examples in Mill Creek Township. In the ordinance, does it say customarily, subordinate, and incidental within the township? Because it's kind of narrow.
No, it does
compared to
not.
nationwide or globally.
No, it does not.
Okay. So, I mean, that's kind of one of my questions is that something that's taken into account that, as Mr. Baldwin said, there are certain things that have to happen a first time in order to continue. So that's, I understand not within Mill Creek Township. That's helpful. So, we've talked about this, and I understand your position and your position letter and lays it all out. The question I would have, and I don't know, Lydia, if you're the one to answer this, or if it's Matt Waldinger, does the township have an official position on this? I mean, I understand the position is that the zoning officer made a determination, but does the township have, hey, we don't think a car wash should go there? Do we have a position, per se?
We haven't, formally discussed issuing a position statement with respect to that. I mean, it's clear from the zoning ordinance that, the supervisors, which was adopted in April, but effective in May of last year, I mean, clearly excluded car washes themselves from that zoning district, and did allow for car wash, accessory. with it being used in conjunction in the context of you have, you're dealing in autos, you're selling autos, or cars rather, and you need to wash the car in order, for part of that process. Or you have a repair shop and you're going to put a single bay car wash that's being used to wash that car after a repair. You can't use the car wash separate and apart from it, someone selling cars or getting your car repaired there. So that's, at least from the discussion, that's the general intent of it, was for it to be, it's related. I understand the may not be attached type of thing, but, in some cases, the car wash may be directly attached to the auto repair place or the dealership, or maybe it's separate, we just buzz it through and you're good to go. But we did specifically make, at least the way it was adopted, car washes themselves are not permitted in the district. And the way this one is sort of structured is it operates independently, like a real car wash, is just sort of shoehorning it into it's an accessory use rather than, even though car washes aren't permitted, you would like to stick it there. Mr. Waldinger?
Yeah, if I may, Matthew Waldinger, Director of Planning and Development for the Township, 3608 West 26th Street, 16506. I think, although Attorney Caparosa put it well, just to be as succinct, our position is the zoning ordinance as written and the determination of the zoning officer as, prescribed in the municipality's planning code and our zoning ordinance. So that's where we would stand.
Yeah, and I guess I get hung up a little bit on the, I mentioned it, but accessory use, customarily subordinate and incidental in Mill Creek Township versus just, if we had a brand-new idea that came to Mill Creek and happened the very first time, not that this is necessarily the case, if some place sold hot dogs and gave you a free car wash, and it was, you literally had to do one to do the other, and that was you know what I mean? Whatever it may be, that could be something that's customarily subordinate and incidental. Maybe they have 100 locations in the U.S., but not in Mill Creek Township.
Well,
So I don't know if that adjusts that at all.
I guess if I may, there is a recourse in the zoning ordinance through the MPC that a variance could be asked for in any of those situations, including this situation. That was not the path that the appellant chose to take. They chose to challenge the determination and the validity of the zoning ordinance, and so that's what we're here defending.
Okay.
Can I ask Mr. President a question now? You guys done? I had some questions for Mr. President.
Go ahead. No, go ahead.
Mr. President.
Yes.
I want to see if we can agree on a couple of things. Would you agree with me that as the zoning officer, when construing a zoning ordinance, you need to look at it in the broadest sense possible from the property owner's perspective?
Yes.
And the overall goal of the zoning ordinance is to protect public safety, health, morals. We know what that's addressing. That's not an issue here. And general welfare. That's your overarching goal, correct?
Correct.
Can we agree that this car wash will not have any impact on public health?
I can't make a
Can you give
comment to
an
that.
example where a car wash would be endanger the general welfare or health of the Mill Creek citizen?
The only thing I could think of is oil and other contaminants from the car getting into the water supply.
Okay, so with any business selling liquids, whether it's a gas station or a car wash, there's always that risk. Okay. And in terms of noise and things like that, you could place restrictions on this if it were approved. You could certainly require Mill Creek Marketplace or Giant Eagle to limit their hours. You could do that, couldn't you?
No.
If they were willing to voluntarily agree to a set of rules, we could stipulate to that, could we not?
Tonight? No.
Not tonight, but if we entered into an agreement, we could certainly make rules that we would live by if the township had any concerns about the hours of operation, the noise that might come from a car wash?
I mean, that would be up to the applicant to enforce themselves. The zoning officer wouldn't have any recourse.
In the sense that you're supposed to look at these ordinances in the broadest sense to benefit the owner, I want to take you back to the retail business establishment definition. It seems to me that you are reading this as a limitation. The accessory uses may include the baking or making of products solely for the purpose of retail sale on the premises. You are reading that as a limitation on the accessory uses that can be in a retail business establishment, correct?
Yes,
But that is not a limitation by the wording, is it? It says accessory uses may include, correct?
yes,
May include is permissive. It doesn't restrict it to the list of items that are there, does it?
no, if it said shall, they would be required to have those.
Exactly, it does not say that.
No, because they don't have to have those.
And it doesn't limit them to baking or making products solely for the purpose of retail, does it? It's not what the words say, correct?
Correct.
Now, as far as in conjunction with, in your determination, you used a definition of conjunction that didn't look at the phrase in conjunction with, it was just the word conjunction, which is a very different definition. Can we agree on that?
I suppose.
Your definition was for conjunction that you used in construing this ordinance was the occurrence together in time or space, the action or instance of two or more events or things occurring at the same point in time and space. That was the definition you used, correct?
Yes.
Did the definition that I provided in our addendum that defines the phrase in conjunction with, did you see that? You read my addendum, I take it?
That's the first addendum.
Yes.
Yes.
We did read it. Could you refresh my memory?
So we provided a definition of the phrase in conjunction with, which is what is in the definition of car wash accessory as in combination with, together with. And then we provided an example. The medicine is typically used in conjunction with other treatments. Those are different definitions than what you used, correct?
Correct.
Is there anything in this ordinance that requires the accessory use to be wholly dependent upon the principal use, such that it cannot function without the principal use? Is there anything in the statute that says that?
I'm going to double check something. What was the question again?
I'll rephrase it, because you were asked by your attorney whether there was, why you decided what you did. You said it was an independent structure and it could function independently. My question to you is there anything in the ordinance that says an accessory use cannot be an independent structure or cannot function independently?
Let's see. Other than where it states accessory use is permitted by right, any use in the accompanying structures that are customarily subordinate. To me, subordinate means dependent upon.
Okay? Well, the examples, the other uses that are given in C2, vehicle fuel station, retail. That vehicle fuel station can operate independently of whatever it's associated with. People can go there, get gas, and never step foot in the store that it's tied to, correct?
Correct, but it's tied to the store.
As is this Wetco. It's tied to the Giant Eagle, is it not? In terms of management and ownership and purpose, it's part of the Giant Eagle, correct?
It would be part of the Giant Eagle Corporation, correct?
My point is that the examples that are here, not examples, but the other accessory uses other than car wash accessory, These are all things that can function independently of their primary use. They don't rely upon that business to be open. For example, I know it's not a Milford, but the Sam's Club has a gas station. That is a fuel station. I can go there, get gas, never step foot at the Sam's. It operates independently of the Sam's, correct?
That is correct.
And there's nothing in the statute that says it has to be dependent. The reason why you've gotten to that point is you've used subordinate and dependent as interchangeable. Is that fair?
I really don't have an answer to that.
Well, it's for the board, I guess, to decide whether the word subordinate is synonymous with dependent.
That is correct.
My position is that it's not. Subordinate just means lesser. You've got Giant Eagle that grosses millions and millions of dollars because they sell high volumes. Subordinate would be a function of the relative size of the operation of this ancillary use, wouldn't it? Isn't that what subordinate means?
You're going to have to look into that further.
But it's important, with all due respect, you're the guy reading the statute, making these determinations. You're customarily subordinate. You need to understand what subordinate means. What does it mean to you? I guess let me just ask you straight out. What does it mean to you?
Subordinate would mean under.
Those are all the questions I have for Mr. Putz. Thank you.
I do have some brief redirect. Mr. Puz?
Yes.
So Attorney Agresti asked you with respect to, your position that the car wash, accessory has to be used with the principal use. And that your determination regarding them being independently operated is an error. Would it be your position, would you agree with me that, I don't know how I'm going to phrase this for you. With respect to car wash accessory, when you're, in your interpretation, is in conjunction with, meaning that they have to be separate? Could they be together or separate, but I know what I'm trying to get at, I just can't get there. With respect to car wash, accessory, would it be fair to say that it's your opinion that if it's a car wash, accessory, it cannot be separately and independently operated from the principal use?
Yes, correct.
Would it be fair to say that this is something that if the business is closed, that has this as an accessory use, that it could not be used by anyone else?
Yes, correct.
So it's used in conjunction with, say, as I talked about earlier, the sale of vehicles, and someone's washing a car. Is that correct?
Yes.
Would that be your understanding?
Yes, that's correct.
So used in conjunction with is used in conjunction with the operations of the principal use,
Yes.
not operating as a separate use.
Yes, that's correct.
That's all I have, Mr. Puz.
Just one follow-up. Mr. Puz, what is the principal use of this tax parcel?
I believe it would be a shopping center, community.
So in an unlikely hypothetical where the Giant Eagle might close and the Wetco could conceivably stay open, it could still be working in conjunction with a shopping center community, correct?
I'm thinking, please give me a moment. I don't know what the accessory use would be to. At that point, it would become a principal use, honestly.
Is there anything in the statute that says the accessory use needs to be tied to a particular retail establishment on the greater parcel? Or isn't it accessory to the property, which in this case contains 12 different businesses?
Let me see here.
Nine different businesses. Doesn't it speak to the accessory being to the property or parcel, I think uses the word.
Principal use, yes.
This is really getting to the additional shopping center argument that was just raised this evening, so we haven't had an opportunity to necessarily prepare a response to that. That wasn't part of the original determination by Mr. Puzz with respect to shopping center. The shopping center is comprised of retail business establishments, but with respect to if something was discontinued as to the larger parcel and whether that would be permitted, we haven't evaluated under that avenue.
That's all I have, Mr. Puzz.
Can I ask? When you're evaluating different issues that we have here, is your interpretation of the wording within the rules consistent? Are you, when somebody says a word, something is defined in here, you interpret it the same way? Have you done that for the past 5 years?
I've been a zoning officer for over 12 years, and I have always consistently enforced the ordinance and interpreted it consistently.
So any kind of wording in there, you're handling consistently?
Yes, that is correct.
I don't know. I don't have anything else. You had some closing remarks?
If you would indulge me, I've only been here a while, but I think it's important to sum up. I want to pick up right where we left off, because I think it's probably the most important thing that we've heard. Zoning ordinances would be read broadly in favor of the owner. They're a restriction on an owner's right to do what they want to do with the property, but we know they're important, because otherwise you'd have chaos. We get that. But with all due respect to Mr. Puzz, when he opens up that book, his mind needs to be in a place where he's looking at, how can I allow this? How can I read this in a way that will allow what the applicant is asking for? That's got to be the starting point according to the case law. I don't think there's any disagreement on that. When he read the definition of retail business establishment, he created a limitation that is not in that definition. You guys are all educated, you can read it yourself. It says may include. It does not say only includes bakeries or making of products. It does not say that. So that is a narrow reading, an unreasonably narrow reading of the definition, which is where his starting point was. That's problematic. It says may. It doesn't say those are the only. It just doesn't say that. And when you read it in that narrow way, you're really violating that very first principle of how you're supposed to read zoning ordinance. The second thing is, there was a narrow review of the definition of car wash accessory in conjunction with is very different than just the word conjunction. He gave a definition of time and space being the same thing. When you look it up in the definition, they're talking about astronomical things where like stars are they're conjunction, they're conjoined, they joined in the same time and space. That is not what this ordinance is talking about. It's talking about in conjunction with. What does that mean? Together with. Well, this WETCO is together with the Giant Eagle. Giant Eagle's not putting this in unless they want to drive business to the mothership, which is the grocery store. It is together with. So when you read it broadly and with Webster's definition of the phrase, you get to where we are, which is that this is in conjunction with the grocery store. That's why it's being put in. No other reason. And the third thing I would say is that the customarily and incidentally. Mr. Tanner, you've asked the questions that I would have asked as well. There's got to be a first, or we'll never progress in Milton, in any township. So when he says in his determination that there's no other examples of this in Mill Creek, that is viewing this narrowly. And again, it's violating that first principle. Let's read this as broadly as we can within reason to accommodate what the person is asked for. When you look only at the you're never going to get anything new, because there always has to be a first. So that's why we presented the examples we did. And the fact that in Columbus it may have been permitted by right, whatever the zoning was there, Mr. Baldwin said it well, he's an attorney and he argued the point. It is not the point of whether that those people had to go get an accessory use permit. It is what is a shopping center looking like now? What does a modern shopping center look like? Well, a lot of them now have car washes for a reason, to drive traffic. What does the modern grocery store look like now? Maybe not in Mill Creek yet, but in many other communities, regardless of what the zoning is, as a business matter, they're putting car washes with these grocery stores because they're dying without them. And they're getting clobbered by Walmart, getting clobbered by Sam's Club and Costco, not here, but in other communities. So they got to give a reason for people to be loyal to Chinese food. And the Wetco is a way to do that. They found that out from Gecko. They learned that from Gecko. Gecko was a way to create loyalty and brand awareness and create synergy, togetherness, if you will, in conjunction with. They're doing the same thing with Wetco. It's no different. So we think that if you read the ordinance broadly like you should, you get to where we're at, which is that this is an accessory use that's a matter of right. It's listed. We've got case law saying you don't need to even look at customary and incidental, but if you want to, we're there. We've given you all the examples that you could ask for. We could find more if you wanted, but I think we've given you enough. So with that, I'll stand down. Thank you.
Okay.
Briefly.
Yes.
So you've heard the testimony this evening. It's the township's position that the proposed car wash does not fall within the scope of a car wash, accessory for this zoning district. It's clear, Mr. Waldinger did provide testimony as well as some commentary from me that, the district does not allow car washes as a permitted use generally. And this is an attempt, we feel, to just put a car wash in where it's not permitted within the zoning district. I understand the concern about, shopping center / retail business establishment that, Mr. Puz has read that too narrowly in interpreting the may include the following things. But it really comes down to is the definition of car wash, accessory. This is not being used in conjunction with a grocery store. This is being used as a separate operation, an entity with separate access points that people can use without ever going to the grocery store. With Mr. Waldinger's testimony as well, is the car wash, accessory is used in conjunction with, for example, vehicle sales, automotive detailing, automotive repair shops that may be needing to wash vehicles afterwards as a separate isolated use, not that it's being used as a commercial operation. With respect to the customary incidental, it's again our position because it's not used in conjunction with a grocery store that a car wash, accessory is not a customary incidental operation. Many of the examples that were provided may be permitted uses where you could just put a car wash regardless of whether or not there's a grocery store there. Could be next to a gas station. I understand that the market may be changing, but this isn't us looking to put a car wash somewhere that, we're trying to move in a different direction. This is a separate accessory use that we've identified only in conjunction with narrow operations, not so much grocery stores. In terms of, the case law saying that because we've listed it as an accessory use, the section 145-19C provides for a narrower application. They don't just automatically get to put a car wash wherever they want. That would be an absurd result because if that's, the argument is that if it's allowed under as an accessory use, we could put car wash accessory to a daycare center because that's a permitted right. But it's in that use because we've listed it as an accessory use car wash. The intent was used in conjunction with the use of the primary use of the property. We respectfully request that you uphold Mr. Puz's determination that the car wash, accessory proposed does not meet the definition, the car wash proposed does not meet the definition of car wash, accessory, and therefore would not be permitted as an accessory use to a retail business establishment.
Okay. Thanks, everyone. We're going to take a recess and discuss. Oh, I'm sorry.
Could I ask one more question?
Yeah, sure.
Will there be any harm to the grocery store if Wetco doesn't go there?
No, other than they will lose competitive advantage, and it could harm them in the long run. But we're not here on a variance. We're not looking to show undue hardship or harm. One of the reasons we took the path that we did, because in all likelihood, the Giant Eagle could survive, but it's going to struggle because it's competing against some larger players. So, I don't know if that answers your question.
It
but-
does, thank you.
Okay, let the record show, we convened at 8:58. Appeal number 23-07, Brian Cool, do we have a motion?
I'll make a motion to modify the variance to include immediate family members living at the residence.
All in favor? Or, I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. All opposed? So moved. Appeal number 23-08, Mill Creek Marketplace LLC, do I have a motion?
I'll make a motion on this to deem the car wash as an accessory to Giant Eagle and to overturn the zoning officer's determination as stated.
I'll second. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
All opposed?
Opposed.
Opposed? So moved. Do I have a motion to adjourn?
I'll make a motion.
I'll second. All in favor?
Aye.
So moved.